Hello, friends. Today's chapter of the day is First Chronicles chapter 18. And really the story of First Chronicles 18 begins in First Chronicles 17. And what we see in First Chronicles 17 is this prayer at the end of the chapter from David. And the prayer reveals a lot about God's character, but it also reveals a lot about David's character in relation to God and what it continues to um, soak through this prayer is humility. David's humble heart before God. And you read through the prayer and it's everything about God has blessed us, and this has been the work of God, and all of our victories will turn to God. And we keep seeing this theme through the prayer. And then we get into First Chronicles 18, and what do we see? We see victory, a lot of victory. We see military victory. Israel, who has been getting pummeled for years and years by these neighboring nations, starts cleaning house. And they start with the Philistines. And the Philistines have been harassing and conquering and killing Israelites for centuries at this time. And you see David subdue them. It's over. They aren't a problem for Israel. The other thing you see is David actually starts to take territory as part of his military conquest in Israel. So Israel isn't just defending itself, it's actually taking territory because God is blessing it. And why is God blessing Israel? Because of this humble heart in its leadership that translates down to the Israeli people. So that's the theme here. It's humility and the reward God grants because of humility. And we don't just see military victory either. We also see the piling up of plunder. We see not only in the victories, in the military victories, David taking spoil and starting to collect gold and silver and bronze. But we also see other kings paying tribute to David, sending officials to David. In some cases, these lands that David had conquered, the people of that land are now paying tax to Israel. So Israel is sort of the land baron that's receiving tax that's going to enrich in Israel, so that David's son Solomon, and we see a direct reference to this in verse 8, so that David's son Solomon can build this amazing, majestic, very expensive and ornate temple according to God's will in 1 Corinthians, well, later on in the story. So that's the story, and again, it all starts with humility. David goes to God with a humble heart, doesn't claim anything of his own, and we see these great successes happening in Israel. Now, it's interesting in First Chronicles that we don't see a lot of David's failures, and there are a couple ways to look at it. First of all, this is the record of Israel's sort of trajectory, and the effects of David's sin don't come until later. So it would be confusing to list them now. The other part of it is this is the big picture. So this is kind of the reaping and sowing kind of part, and the message here is clear. If we are humble, God will reward us. Now, He may not reward us in this life. I mean, this is a spiritual lesson. So this isn't to say if you're humble, God's going to give you a kingdom and allow you to wipe out everyone around you. And frankly, if that's your goal, you're not super humble. But anyhow, the message is humility is God's will for us. And we need to do that, and God is going to reward that, whether now or in the next life. So a lot to be learned in 1 Chronicles chapter 18. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. God bless.